Welcome to brunch. I have the table set for 8. There'll be 7 of us coming for brunch at my apartment. And I've had several of you to my apartment for lunch or brunch. And I'm happy to show you right now what I have. The dinner plates, or lunch plates, are Metlock's china. It's a California china. It's called a California poppy, made by Metlocks. And I just thought these scallop plates were so attractive. And I ordered 8. And they had 11 of the mugs. And I thought I'd better get 11 mugs in case I broke some. And I still have 11 of the mugs. These pieces, this is Stangleware, and these were our first dishes, Stangle, made in Flemington, New Jersey. And we had 8 place settings. And I've had some of the extras too, just added since, because we made a trip to Flemington just to see what they had in seconds. And it was good to find some things available. The bamboo placemats were my mother's. She used those at her camp in the Adirondacks, as was the bamboo ware. And she had many forks and knives and spoons that she got on a trip to Japan. And I'd like to mention the daffodil. We were in Florida one time, and I was helping my husband's sister move, and I happened to be needing lunch. Went to a strip mall and sat down on a bench outside the shop, and a lady came along and she started having a conversation. And I told her about this daffodil that I saw in the shop. And I said, "Oh, but I don't need it." And she said, "Oh, get it." So I did, and I'm so glad I did. This is pretty, isn't it? Some of you may have seen it out on my shelf. Anyway, welcome to brunch. I'll be serving from the kitchen shortly. Well, this table is set with my Wedgwood china. I like the pattern. You probably have seen the blue shell pattern. And I chose just the plain cream color on cream color because I thought food looked better on a plain plate. But I had 14 place settings of this china, and we had dinner parties for 14 people, but not here at the Forest, although I brought it all here. Didn't realize that we had such a good dining service here. I just want to point out a few things. The soup dishes I bought when we were in London one time visiting our daughter. I went into Gerard's, the beautiful store there with all of the Wedgwood pottery and crystal, and they were having a sale. And of course a clerk came to me and I told her what I was looking at, and she said, "Oh, we can ship that to the States, no charge." So of course I couldn't resist that bargain, and I ordered the 14 soup bowls, which arrived all intact. And I've served many a soup from that. I'd like to mention these napkins, and you'll notice they're in the glasses because they do not fold. The Oxford Lace Factory, some of you may have been there, they will not fold flat. That's why they're seconds. So I just decided to put them in the glasses, and that way we could pour the water later. I gave most of the dishes. I did save 2 place settings. I gave it to Nearly New Shop, and I'm just hoping that someone is able to use those 12 place settings, all intact. And this is all set up. As I say, I'm remembering many a dinner party that we had at our lake house up at Clarksville, Virginia. So, welcome to my dinner party. Thanks.
Hello, I'm Jean Vale, and this is Loverly, my fun Gloria Vanderbilt china. When years ago I first admired it in a shop window on Hilton Head Island, I was with a good friend, Betsy Barrett. She immediately teased me. "Now, Jean, you don't need any more china." Of course, she was right, but its bright colors and whimsy really appealed to me, and I later sneaked back to the shop alone to buy it. You can imagine my delight when Betsy and her husband next came to our house for dinner, and I surprised her by using the china just to tease her right back. When we downsized away most of my china collection to move to the forest, I clung to 6 place settings of this pattern. In the meantime, I had happened upon the fabric from which I made the napkins. It's all very light and informal, but I love the way the napkins echo the colors and theme of the china. The flatware is another serendipitous find from a garden club excursion to New Bern, North Carolina. Again, the bright colors struck my fancy, but unfortunately, the tiles are easily loosened, so it has to be washed by hand, and consequently doesn't get much use. My sister started my collection of the cabbage glasses, of which this is one of the 6 I also kept. Again, my color. Finally, that is a real rose that my son Rob gave me for Mother's Day last May, preserved in some miraculous way by a company called Venus et Fleurs. The rose fragrance has all but disappeared in the interim, but it's still lovely to look at on my breakfast table.
Hi, I'm Sue Ellman. The first place setting I'm going to be showing you is from my 9-room dollhouse that I built myself from blueprints. And I brought this place setting because this one was not glued down. All the others are glued in the house. So the boudoir chair and ottoman and rug come from the master bedroom. The tea set came from the ottoman there where the lady of the house was going to have tea, and the table came from the library. So everybody in small town is ready to have a tea party. Hello, Susan Ellman again. For this special occasion, I brought part of my mother-in-law's collection of cups, saucers, and cake plates. She died before Richard and I were married, but she knew me and she knew we were going to get married. So I have part of her collection and Richard's sister has the other part. Her choice first, but whatever I was left with, I absolutely adore. Okay. This is set up for a tea party. We have very delicate utensils for all the yummy things. You could have bag tea, you could have loose teas, or you could have infused teas. And this little tea infuser is part of my 430 miniature house collection. The centerpiece are beaded flowers that I had made many years ago, of course, when that was a wonderful craft to do. And this I actually made for my mom and dad's apartment when they moved to Florida. So I hope you enjoy tea, not virtually, but really. Thank you.
When I was a girl, I read romantic tales of knights on horseback, queens on thrones, and princesses in towers. When it was time to choose a college, Duke's stone arches beckoned me. And many years later, we made the corner of our large stone mill in Wake Forest our home, and I found castle-like furnishings to complement the 2-foot-thick stone walls. Now our cottage is an eclectic mix of medieval and modern things. Here is a table setting of a runner and placemat I made from fabric that reminded me of old tapestries, with raku clay candlesticks, a clay plate, and hammered steel cutlery. When we can travel again, we'll be back in France, seeing chateau and abbey ruins, since my love for castles is still strong.
Hi, I'm Linda Carlson, and this is my husband, George Carlson. We've come to explain our place setting.
To us, this place setting has a lot of sentimental value because it's derived from family members. And I think Linda's going to start and talk about the china. Correct, Linda?
The china is actually George's china. I gave it to him, I think about 15 years ago. We were in a restaurant in Little Washington, Virginia, and he said, I really like these plates. And so I turned the plate upside down, very elegantly in a restaurant.
Right in the restaurant,
of
we
course,
might add,
what
yeah.
else? And I took down the name of the plate, and I gave it to he has 6 dinner plates and 6 salad plates, and I gave it to him for a holiday present, and I couldn't afford any more.
I'd like to talk to you a little bit about the silver. I'll pick up one piece here. The pattern is Old English. It's about 1910, and you really can't see it, but right here, where my little finger is pointing, there are initials, and the initials are G as in George, my name, and C as in Carlson, my last name, but those are really not my initials on the silver. They're that of my grandfather, whose name was Gustav Carlson. And I got this silverware from my grandfather, and when I first saw the silver and realized that he had put his initials on the silver, I thought, what nerve to have his initials on the silver rather than something else. But I was dissuaded of that view. Many years later, we were on a tour up in Newport, Rhode Island, and went on some of the mansions, and a tour of some of the mansions. And one of the docents explained to us that at that time, early 1900s, it was traditional for the silver to bear the initials of the so-called man of the house. And so when I heard that, I thought, grandfather, I got to cut you some slack. I was wrong. You did the right thing. But the silver means a lot to me because it came from my grandfather. And
Except for the fish knives.
Okay, why don't you talk about the fish knives?
The fish knives are another George story. We were in a restaurant, and he said, look at these fancy fish knives. We don't have any. So I found the fish knives, and I think we only have about 6, at an antique store. So these also are George's. And what's left is the crystal.
And this is Waterford crystal. This is a wine, or what they call a hock glass. This is
Old-fashioned.
Old-fashioned glass. And it's, why don't you talk a little bit about it, Linda?
What did we say, in 1969, as graduate students, I saw in the New York Times an ad for a tour to Ireland, $375 for, airfare, B&B for 2 weeks, and a car. And George had just finished his preliminary exams, and I said, let's go. So we went in March. And as we were driving around in our mini Austin with an incredible steering wheel, we stopped at a China store and bought these. Each one of these cost $7.
And the pattern is called Tralee, and as some of you may know, if you have any Irish connection, Tralee is a town, a village on the southwest part of Ireland, near the Dingle Peninsula. And that's, in our view, one of the most beautiful parts of Ireland in terms of the scenery, the people, everything. And so we wanted to get this crystal to memorialize our trip and something that we would always have to remind us of what a wonderful time we had in Ireland.
Thank you. I hope you enjoyed it.
Okay, at the request of X from the Forested Duke, I'm showing what my husband and I do when it comes to eating the food here. I'll start off with a little history. This was done in 1901 by my aunt, and it's aunt, not aunt, because she only has 2 legs. And they did china painting in those days, and she was actually excellent. This is one of the plates she did, which is a bunch of grapes, and this is water lilies. She was actually excellent china painter. In those days, ladies stayed home and, ladies stayed home and painted. Now this is a set of 12, which my mother made me get when I got married. I'll have to say, I've never used it. It's as pristine as when it was sold in the store. I've got a set of 12, and I've got all the little accoutrements that go along with it. Didn't bring the silver because that's all looks the same. And we got wonderful crystal, which I put in the dishwasher, which was dishwasher safe, and it all broke. So I got another whole set of dishwasher. Over here is what my husband and I eat off of now. Whatever comes out first in the cupboard, or if we don't eat from the direct cartons that they send us from the forest. And that's about it. We don't do anything that we're supposed to as Southerners. We just eat because we're hungry and they have excellent food here. That's it.
These are the things I have used most of my life to celebrate the holidays and special occasions such as birthdays and anniversaries. The china and silver were wedding presents, the crystal and linens I bought later on. The silver flatware is Medici by Gotham and is discontinued. The china is Castle Garden by Lennox and is also discontinued. The china was what we selected when I got married. My mother-in-law really liked it and often gave me additional pieces as Christmas gifts. It is not in production anymore. I guess brides' tastes have changed since the 70s. The crystal is Helena by Orifors. Linens is Ivory Damask. I've had it for so many years I don't recall where I got them. I use dark maroon or forest green napkins at Valentine's Day and Christmas. The candlesticks, tall middle, Italian air twist, seconds, Scandinavian, short ends, American. I hope you enjoy.
Actually, there's a very good story that goes with this so-called good china, which is actually Mukasa, and so it really isn't considered the really good china. It was not my mother's. Neither she nor my grandmother nor any of my aunts had stuff like that. We were all too poor. Anyway, for a few years, I did a Passover Seder for 20 or so people, and it became really important to me for everyone to have the same pattern flatware and tableware. So I had bought an incomplete set of china at a garage sale and decided that I would buy pieces to finish off the set at Replacements Limited, which is down the road a piece here in North Carolina. And I did. I bought dinner plates, serving pieces, coffee and teapots, dessert plates, salad plates, soup bowls, sugar and creamer set, a butter set. I filled my entire china closet with china, and I ended up with service for 20, which was the number I needed because that's how many people I was inviting every year. Now, this was supposed to be an inexpensive way to finish the $20 incomplete set that I had bought at the garage sale. And it turned out that I spent enough to have bought 2 new upscale sets, and perhaps even more. One day, Daniel looked at the china closet, which is not a very big one, but big enough, and said, "Where did all those dishes come from?" And I said, "You hadn't realized that I was building a china legacy." When my older daughter got married, she wanted real china, so I bought her a set. I used my set for a few years, and then when we stopped doing seders and stopped entertaining, I only used the set at Thanksgiving. What to do with it when we decided to come here? The problem was no one wanted it. My daughters didn't want it, and the store where I consigned things also didn't want it. They said no one was buying china anymore. So I finally talked the older daughter into taking a service for 12 that she uses for every day. She puts it in the dishwasher, and but once a gift is given, it's gone. The soup bowls aren't big enough for her, but those are now her problems. And I sort of have service for 8. I have more dinner plates and no serving pieces whatsoever. I was thinking of inviting guests for dinner and using the good stuff when the virus hits. So now I look at the china closet and my lovely Mikasa dinnerware that I happen to like a great deal and think, what a waste, although I did enjoy it for the years we used it. Oh, and I did the same thing with the flatware. It's silver plate, not silver, and it too was an incomplete set that had to be finished. So how is that for a story that goes with a table setting? And the only other thing I will say is my centerpiece are 2 dance figurines that I bought in Cincinnati and fell in love with. That year, Daniel did not buy me a birthday present, and so I bought these as a present for me, and they moved with me, unlike many of the other dance figurines I had collected. Thank you. That's it.
Hi, I'm Heike Dohn from Cottage 85, and I have brought you today my fancy dishes, which I only use 2 or 3 times a year. At Christmas, when the kids come, and when the German-speaking ladies come for dinner. Then I set it all up. Now, this is a German set of dishes, and it is called Schumann Bavaria is the company. And when you look on the back of it, which was a very interesting study to look at all those seals, this pattern is called Dresden. Now, the company Schumann Bavaria is in Arzberg, that is Upper Franconia, on the Czech border. If you go there, not very far, you would run into Pilsner beer. But Arzberg is a very small town. It has nowadays only about 60,000 people, and it was probably less at the turn of the century. But Arzberg is home to 2 famous china companies. One is the Schumann, and the other one is Arzberg. And Arzberg is still produced. It became famous because it is synonymous with modern design, even though it comes from a very small town way in the mountains at the Czech border. They became famous with a pattern called 1932, which was typical for the Bauhaus movement. But this particular pattern is from the other porcelain company in town, namely Schumann, which was founded in 1881 by a guy named Christian Friedrich Schumann. And the company has been in the family until it closed manufacturing in 1994. This particular pattern is called Dresden, and it comes in two varieties. One is just old Dresden, and the other one is Empress Dresden, just means it had scalloped edges. But the pattern, the flowery pattern, would be the same. The other variety to it is called Chateau, and it differs because it has the perforated rims. Now, those perforated rims, of course, are mostly for serving dishes, and in this case for charger plates. So this would be the charger plate, the Chateau, to the old Dresden. Now the old Dresden exists, the pattern, since about 1900, but as the years went by, it became more and more elaborate. And when I looked at the different marks of the china, there's an incredible amount of variations. But you can tell from that mark which year it was produced in. So going from this mark, I could tell that this particular set of china, even though the pattern has been in manufacture since the 1900s till the 1950s, I think, or longer, is from around 1920 to 1932 or so. You can also tell that the Schumann has always in its mark, it has a lion or the Bavarian crown. Now the the lion, they got the permission from the town of Arzberg to use that because that is in the town seal, actually. And so, as you can see, it has all kinds, as all the china sets have. Then you have the charger plate, you got the regular dining plates, salad plates, cereal bowls, coffee cups, mocha cups, dessert plates, and so on. Now, this particular set comes from Germany, but it didn't come to me from Germany. It belonged to my husband's great aunt. She was the youngest sister of Fred's grandmother. And this particular lady was married to an army man who became a brigadier general. And they lived in many years in China and in the Panama Canal, but never in Germany. So I think they just had a fairly big house with lots of guests all the time. I think she just bought this set because it was fairly, I guess, popular in the 20s and 30s for her social activities when they lived in Washington, D.C. They were both born and raised in Washington, D.C. Her husband was a physician, and he was in charge of army hospitals in China. Then he was in charge of the neuropsychiatric section of Walter Reed for many years. And in the Second World War, he was in charge of army hospitals anywhere between Washington, D.C. and New York City. Anyway, this Aunt Florence must have gotten these plates in the 20s and 30s when their social life was in their prime. And then I met her after I married Fred in 1966, and she told me about those German dishes that she had. And lo and behold, when she passed away in 1970, we inherited those German dishes. So even though they are German dishes, I never brought them, or even for that matter would have bought them, because when I was young, I went, of course, for modern designs. So the other line of the Arzberg manufacturers, the Arzberg, which was more modern and more in the line with Bauhaus, would have interested me more. But when I got to know this fashionable Southern lady, Fred's great aunt, and her fancy things that she had, I was not upset when I inherited it. And I was amazed. She must have had a set for 24. So now I am flooded with all kinds of dishes. But usually, once in a while, when there is some special guests, I'll take it out and I use it. Not too often, because you got to wash it by hand. So this is, I guess, all that I can tell you about this. And I hope that you have all enjoyed this little sidetrack in the family history of the Doans, of which I was not the elegant part and and the wealthy part, but his family was. So thank you very much.